I think everyone's here today because they want to talk about V1. Does that sound right? Does anyone else have different things they wanted to talk about today?
Probably
Sounds like
best you
something to talk about.
probably best you go through V1 and then see
Yeah.
if,
Yep.
if
Yeah.
the topics are covered already or not.
Yep.
Yeah, great. So we're just by issue count, we're over halfway through V1. I just took a pass through the whole backlog that we have here to kind of most importantly call out security issues. These are things that are literally preventing us from rolling Porter out in prod and feeling great about it. And those are the most important things on my mind. What I'm working on right now is tracing and logging because, again, when you're in production, it's really hard to work with Porter the way it outputs logs right now, especially if you're running like a lot of bundles concurrently. So I have an open PR that will send all trace data to an open telemetry endpoint and allow you to have structured logs so that if you just want to do log parsing, you can do that too. And then next would be all these wonderful security bugs. One second. There we go. So for example, when we publish our binaries to GitHub, we don't publish the corresponding checksum. Obviously that needs to be addressed. We have experimental build kit support. Oops, sorry. But you can't do some of the most important things with it, which are necessary in order to do a secure build. So for example, connecting to the host SSH, passing in secrets, things like that, so that you can do a build of a bundle that uses private resources without also getting keys or anything like that baked into the resulting image. So we need to be able to expose them. This one we don't yet have the design finished on what it should be, but essentially right now there are different situations you can get into where you end up putting sensitive data in your Porter config file, and obviously that's not okay. Porter has the ability to read secrets, from like Vault or something like that, and we want to basically use that exact functionality here in the config file so that there's nothing sensitive in our config file anymore. Let's see what else we got here. We have a couple with bundle digest checking. Some of this is like alleviated by the fact that the new version of Porter lets you specify bundle digests. So instead of working with bundle version 1 or version 2, you can just say explicitly which digest you want, which eliminates a lot of categories problems. But Porter can do a lot more in a couple places to help make sure that you don't accidentally drift off of a digest if you are using tags. So we want to make sure that that's in there. And then the stickiest one is this. Sorry, the issue doesn't have a ton of data, but I can put more in here. The problem is that when Porter stores information about a run, there are two types of information that you can provide to a bundle: parameters and credentials. Credentials are never stored anywhere or persisted anywhere. They're all assumed to be sensitive. Parameters can store sensitive data or not, right? And the CNAB specification requires that Porter persists the parameters used during a run. And so what can result then is sensitive data is being written out to our database. And we need to ideally not do that at all. I don't want to ever be in a position where like Porter could be, you know, an attack point basically. So what I'd like to do is use the secrets plugin so that we can, for example, like selectively encrypt parameters that we know are sensitive, or store the sensitive parameter in Vault, and then just reference the key to where you can find it, so that when Porter needs to kind of rehydrate that original claim for a bundle, it can go out to Vault, get that data, and then be compliant with the spec and bring all the data back in, but never actually be holding sensitive data anywhere in Porter's files themselves. That's kind of my goal. I don't want sensitive data anywhere in any files that Porter makes and works with, including this database. These are like must-have. Cannot hit 1.0 without these. I don't know if anyone has any comments. I apologize for just rolling through. I'm not quite sure what people are looking for about the roadmap right now.
No, this is good information. I think we obviously have the things that we care about, but I mean, these things will probably affect us as well. I mean, the more that we use Porter, especially I think with some of the work we have coming up, I don't know, Don, you can probably chime in. I don't know if we're going to need secrets for that, or is that?
Well, the work we're doing mostly now is with the operator. So it's not really in this space, I guess. I mean, obviously it is that the agent's got to need information and the rest of it, but I think there's nothing at the moment. There's nothing at the moment that I can think of.
I mean, what might be interesting, I guess, is since we're in operator land, like if you could reference a Kubernetes secret as a parameter or something like that, that might.
Yeah. So in theory, the Kubernetes secret plugin that Simon wrote does allow you to do that. In practice, I need to talk to him because I have not managed to actually get that to work. But it's essentially, if it doesn't work, it's a bug either in the docs or some part of the implementation. But that's what we wanted to work.
Right.
Is that if you have a parameter,
we haven't had a need for it yet, so I haven't explored it. But yeah, I would think that piece would at least take care of the Porter side of things, that you could, as long as you've got some sort of, hard level encryption on your secrets or protection around the secrets in Kubernetes, that would at least take care of it on that end of the thing. Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's true that we don't tend to use the CLI itself for much other, even just bootstrapping it in. Now we use the YAML to bootstrap the operator into the system. So yeah,
it's important to understand that the operator uses the CLI though, so any security vulnerabilities in the CLI are present in the operator.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's just the case that we don't really use anything that falls into that bucket at the moment. I guess. Right. I guess the only thing that would affect us at the moment is we do have kube configs, and obviously the kube config's base64 encoded, but I mean that's hardly what you would call secure.
Yeah, right.
And if somebody gets the kube config, then they got access to the cluster. So that's.
That's why you should be using a credential for the kube config. I mean, honestly, my recommendation, if anyone's using Porter with production data, you should not use parameters for anything sensitive. You should use credentials.
Yeah,
because of these security concerns.
That's not going to work for us because we don't know what the kube config is when we create the bundle.
There's actually no difference between parameters and credentials as you define them in the bundle. Like, they're both injected at runtime. They're both resolved the same way in runtime. The only difference between a credential and a parameter is how Porter treats it when it comes to persistence of data. As far as like the flow and when data is available and what you need to know as an author versus what you need to know as an end user running the bundle, it's exactly the same. So if you're able to use a parameter right now, you can use a credential.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think right now we just have a parameter that's basically just like a file defined.
It's not a file. It's base 64. Well, for what I use, it's a base 64 encoded string.
Right. So you're saying we could just put it in the credentials list instead, and
yeah, just like you define it right now in a parameter set, define it in a credential set. Ideally, you'd reference, you'd use a secret store like Azure Key Vault, HashiCorp Vault, something like that. And then that would make sure that Porter doesn't actually ever have that data. It's not being written out to file anywhere. And as a credential, it won't then be written to our data store or temp files or anything like that.
And I think that at one point in time, you also mentioned the ability to reference the in-cluster Kubernetes config for the operator.
Yeah, I feel like there's a couple like concerns around that maybe aren't relevant right now to talking about just the V1 for Porter, but we should definitely talk about that because I feel like there's like at least two different concerns, about how to make this work. Like if you're using kubectl, it can actually automatically pick up that it's in a cluster and use it. So the question is, how do we gracefully handle making a bundle that can work in cluster and one that isn't, in cluster and therefore needs a kube config? But it's kind of like there's a lot more to unpack than I think we have time right here, and I don't want to derail.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if there were specific things you had questions about for the V1 milestone that I can help answer.
Oh no, all our things are really around the operator.
Yeah, that's I think our big.
Sorry, sorry if this was just about V1. I thought in the agenda we covered the operator as well.
No,
so
they're kind of tied together. Let me switch over to the operator.
I mean, right now, everything from the bundle perspective is working fine for us because we don't pass parameters or anything that's secret around.
Okay. So the plan for the operator to have a version that you could use in production, the rewrite has gone in, right? But we still have lingering problems and gaps. Like the biggest gap is we don't have uninstall yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a big one for us.
Yeah. Sorry, there's to be brutally honest, it's just me working on Porter at the moment. Yeah. So that's why I can't commit to any timelines or anything. I'm going to be out till the end of the year after this week.
Wait, who told you you could take a vacation? No.
Not even a vacation, so it's not even fun, right?
Oh, dear.
You want to do fun things. So if anyone has time to either help with working out how these should be or PRs or even just trying out new builds as they come out so that we get some feedback on it, would be incredibly useful. Because I'm just playing hopscotch between moving V1 for Porter forward and then also adding things for the operator. Like for example, the tracing is actually incredibly important for operator because you're never sitting there watching the logs of a specific bundle, right? So being able to aggregate that and look at it in a dashboard and see what's failing and where the problems happened for any particular bundle run that may have happened, concurrently and things like that is incredibly important. It's going to help us be able to support this in prod. Yeah.
And we're using OpenTelemetry Collector and OpenTelemetry ourselves anyway, so that fits very nicely with the fact we wouldn't have extra infrastructure or components that we need to put in, so that's great. I mean, we are using Porter and Prod already. And the big thing for us is we can't tear things down afterwards. So the uninstall is a big challenge for us at the moment. We're having to write our own scripts to try to tear the environments down after.
Yeah, I mean, you could set the action on the CR to uninstall, right? It's just that it's not doing that automatically when you're deleting them, right?
Right.
Yes.
There's no finalizer on the
Right.
installation, right?
Yep.
To clean it up.
Yeah, that one and the other one was the
I have a whole list here.
Oh.
Are there things that you are needing from the operator that aren't on this list right now?
From that list, hold on.
I'll put a link in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, the creating a CR for Porter itself when it's installed. That's another one that would be.
Yeah, the little bootstrapping so you can manage Porter. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, because I'd like to have something so that once everything is running, it just self-sustains and I don't have to drop back out Kubernetes land.
Yeah, let me just go to all issues here.
I
think we have that one that you just mentioned.
Yeah, it's in here. It was down towards the end, 28 or something, or I think it was.
Populate installation CRD. So I guess the ones for us are 27, 28.
Is that it? Oh no, that's the status. Oh, that would be handy too.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like what you have now, what you're using now was.
Oh yeah, it's 32.
Just so we were just proving out like how would Porter look in an operator. You know, what would we like to be able to do?
Yeah.
Here we go. This is the one we were talking about.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that would be huge.
Labels and annotations are one as well. One thing we could really do with, but I thought it might have been on the list already. I should have checked. Is running as a managed ID as well in Azure.
Yeah, is that just an annotation, or is there more to it for the identity?
It's just an annotation.
Yeah, if you've got the pod identity installed, then it's just an annotation on the pod.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's on the list for sure.
That's good.
Yeah, I think someone did you implement it? Yeah. You have a patch. Someone said they actually have a patch for this exact issue.
No, we've not patched.
Not us.
Okay.
And then the other one was the job and resource cleanup.
Yeah. Let me make sure that's on V1 because selfishly it just doesn't do it right now because as I'm debugging it, that's what I've needed the entire time. Let's make sure that's
sure.
Here we go.
Oh, it's understandable. It's kind of just when we jump into the namespaces. it's like wow. Does the operator also create temporary disks? Is a question because
it creates PVCs using the default storage class.
Yeah, because we've noticed we've got PVCs hanging around.
Yeah, it will clean those up too as part of that issue. We just have to be able to do that in order to communicate between Porter and the invocation image, which runs in a separate pod.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Because that was another one for us. On our budgetary sheet that we get, there's lots of PVCs
that I bet. Yeah.
When we get our cloud billing, it's like, where did all these PVCs come from? We're like,
yeah. And I guess the final one on our list of the ones that you mentioned. So we've done uninstall, we've done cleanup, we've done managed ID. The last one is CVEs. So we're publishing to managed app on Azure has not caused us any problems per se with CVEs because we pulled the Porter image from Docker Hub.
Okay.
And on the Azure side, only our specific containers, if you like, are the ones as part of the managed app offer are scanned for layers. On AWS, it's a completely different animal. Everything needs to go into the ECR repo for the application, which is 25 container images for us at the moment. And we can't have CVEs on any of them, even if they're not ours.
Yeah. I have a pull request. Nathaniel just gave me this is you, right, Nathaniel? Your church.
Yeah.
13.
Hey, that's me.
Great. Yeah. So I just got the best review ever. I've been sitting on this because I wasn't confident for like what needed to happen to have an image that could get it into Iron Bank.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think these changes here, we can get a merge soon, and then similar changes to the operator image. Right. I think that should help a lot. But if there's more to it than using distro lists and some of the other best practices in this PR,
Well,
you
can go ahead, Don.
I was just going to say, we've switched the base image on the Porter components ourselves temporarily to try to get it working and to try to get it to pass, and it's been fine for us. They've all now passed the scans based on those images, but I did notice that this PR had already been done, so this was probably done a day or two. Oh no, a little while ago. So I knew this had been done, but we did the same exercise ourselves, and it fixed up all the issues. So
yeah, if you'd like to take a look at this, it's going to get updated, and then probably, if I can, I'm going to merge it before I go on leave, which I think would give people a chance to look at it. But if you want to look at this PR and see if there's anything you had to do to your image that isn't here, let me know.
I guess the only real thing, other than removing most of the underlying base image issues, which went away when we changed the base, was make sure that the kubectl version was 121 or newer because of some CVEs in kubectl itself, 119, 120.
Yeah. I think in general, this is a problem with Porter, and our mixins and things like that, is that we don't install like the latest version by default when you run things. It's like a specific version of the mixin is defaults to using a specific version of, say, kubectl or something like that, and then we don't have like the infrastructure to do things like pick up that there's new versions and just put out new builds, right?
Well, it's something we can look at. I mean, I think the kubectl plugin, you can actually specify the version in the mixing, can't you?
Yes.
Yeah. And
the problem is just having to do that yourself.
Sure. Agreed. I don't know. I know we have some mixins that do it as well, and we allow it to override. But you're right. You've got to manually remove to go to the top of the YAML file and change that to a newer version to get it to work. So, and to switch to an arbitrary version of the latest version is great, but not everybody's off 1.16 at Kubernetes yet. So switching to 1.22 for the client would bring its own opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think
kind of a scary statement, but true.
Well, it's not very true, but they are out there. I know that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, for bundles, the best practice is to know which version of kubectl you're using. Right. This is why we use a specific one as a default in the mixin, so that you can't from one run to the next get a different kubectl. That kind of stuff is can break you at awkward times. So setting the client version is kind of like the recommended best practice, unless you have other suggestions that we could be doing in the mixins, because all the mixins have the same pattern.
Yeah. I know. I remembered I had to change mine to follow.
Yeah.
I think keeping it a static version is still is acceptable. That's because I work for CloudFit, and we have a lot of locks on the versions of applications that we deploy in our pipelines anyway. So having the ability to specify it is better, because then we have a predictable failure case.
Yeah. I 2 points to that. One, I think the only problem is the current default are CVEs.
Sure. Yeah.
Agreed.
That's calling us an issue. The second thing is you were talking about persisting the parameters and everything for a run. You also need to preserve the mixing versions of the things like kubectl, etc. as well. I guess because you could have a run, to your point, Caroline, you could have a run that works on 1.19 of the client and then just run exactly the same file with the same parameters again on 1.22 and it might break. So
these are baked into the invocation image when Porter builds the bundle. So from run to run, it will be the same version of, say, kubectl or whatever tool you specified. If you do things at runtime, inside the bundle, that's going to be on the author to track. But with, for example, any of the mixins right now, the version of kubectl won't change underneath you from run to run unless you upgrade the bundle, and the bundle was built with a newer version of kubectl, for example, to fix a CVE or something like that.
Right, but for example, if we're using the operator with the installation, we might have an installation that works and an installation that doesn't, to your point of tracking down what the difference might be.
Wait, I'm not following. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, if I have a bundle and I run an installation remotely and it installs, and then somebody comes along, builds a new version of the bundle, updates the client, runs it again, and it fails, they might not change the parameters. But you can't see from the actual installation itself.
So the installation is tied to a specific version and digest of the bundle. So unless you updated the installation CRD to say, I want to use a new version of the bundle, it will be the same. Like the bundle will be the same, and therefore the tools inside of it will be the same.
Well, I get that, but just historically, if I have to go look at a failed installation, I don't really want to be looking at the chart to work out what the difference was. It will be just better in the installation. If it's capturing the parameters that were passed in, it could store the binary versions of the mixins as well.
That is stored. It's in the bundle .json for the like the bundle definition. So it is actually available. It's in if you trying to think of the right command, like it's in the database in the back end. It's not exposed in the CRD, the whole bundle definition, because it's a very big JSON blob. I think if you were running our new installation history command, or installation runs command, this is in V1, you can ask for a run, give me the bundle definition, and that will have what mixins were used and what versions they were at.
That's fine then. As long as it exists and you can find that.
Yep. You can get at it already. It's just not on the CRDs.
All right.
Because at some point we're really not trying to be in the business of duplicating Porter's backend in the CRDs, and that's one of the other pieces that we're trying to feel out is what should be put on status, right? So you can have a Kubernetes native experience, and what would be better maybe by using the proposed Porter service that we could host next to the operator, where you could just run data queries to get at the backend data.
Yeah, apologies. I wasn't meaning it was on the CR itself, but even if it went out via open telemetry and got logged or something, so there was.
Yeah, and in telemetry, you will have the full bundle definition.
That's perfect then. That works perfectly well.
Let's see if I can find that. I think I just had this. Just trace this. Is it still here? Oh, wait, let's go back more than an hour. There we go. So you will get, this is what I'm talking about. This is the big blob here, and you'll get things like what is everything.
Yep, that's perfect. Yeah. That's absolutely perfect.
Nice.
Okay.
That's easily parsable.
Yeah.
It is.
This is going to get merged. I was going to say, this is going to get merged, hopefully, again, before I go. So if anyone's interested in telemetry, I'll ping in Slack. So if people want to take a look at it and suggest other things to track.
Right.
It's not a finished feature, it's just the initial. There's a lot of like logging and instrumentation that we already had that we need to convert to OpenTelemetry.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in our dev environments, OpenTelemetry Jaeger as well, so I'll just fit straight in.
Yeah, this will be great.
And I presume there's some way, obviously, to configure where to push.
Oh yeah. So there's standard OpenTelemetry environment variables like hotel exporter, endpoint, things like that.
Yeah.
If you just set those and then enable tracing for Porter, it will use them. It doesn't just use them without you saying yes, please. I do actually want to export trace data, so that you can, selectively turn it off if it's expensive or anything like that.
Right. Yep. Oh, that's good.
Were there any other concerns or things y'all wanted to go over?
I mean, I'd love to hear if there's, if there's any. It looked like there was some breaking changes you had floating around in the change log there for Porter. I guess, if there anything that's coming up soon that we should be thinking about.
Yeah.
So that we aren't on the receiving end of the wrong surprise.
Yeah, because we're kind of flip flopping between a couple of versions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to try and keep towards the front end of the release chain, but
yeah. Let's see if I can filter these just in V1 to breaking changes. This is only if if you have JSON parameters that you are currently using in the templates, like in the bundle template.
Yeah, we don't have that.
Okay, we're gonna make it easier for people to consume, but if they were relying on the old way, that's considered a breaking change. The old way basically didn't think you would be using it, so we are gonna be doing a sweep of the commands, because we're a bit inconsistent in various places. Like sometimes we use long names, short names when do we expose things as flags. So there's also a bunch of little things like that. So if you go through this, you'll kind of see what they are. We're just trying to make all the commands consistent so that it's not like some use flags this way and some use them in other ways.
Right.
The verbosity flag, that's all the structured logging and tracing that I was talking about. It's a breaking change because it will change the output, the text output, and if someone was scraping Porter's output and relying on it, that could break them.
Now in the operator, I know that there's a debug and debug plugins on the config file as well, isn't there? Is that changing then also, or
the debug flag is going to go away? Yeah.
Okay.
And instead you'll be able to just set a log level, right? So you're interested in debug, you're interested in info, warn, things like that.
I think
that makes me very happy.
Yeah,
we've had pipelines that would just fail because I would forget that debug would output to something other than standard out, and I would be like, well, that's not an error, but I guess it thinks it's an error.
That's the other thing that this is fixing, is that anywhere where we were basically sending progress information to standard out, it's going to start going to standard error as part of the structured logs.
Yep.
So that standard out is always JSON parsable if it's supposed to be JSON, things like that, right?
Nice.
Okay. Hopefully that's not breaking people, but strictly speaking, all of these are breaking changes,
Yep.
Do you use air gaps and like specifying what images your bundle uses?
Yes.
All right. So there's two ways to reference an image. Is one with the digest, which is what you should use.
I think we're using digests.
Okay, good.
Because that is Yeah, that's a requirement. So yeah, I think we're using
Yeah.
digests.
All right, because we had tag as well, and it never really got implemented completely or correctly. So we're thinking of either just completely removing it or essentially making it a comment, as you can say, this is where I got this digest from, and will help preserve that metadata for you, but it's not going to be used by anything.
Yeah,
Well,
we're using digests.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
as a we. So
Yeah. And then this is for it's essentially to help people debug. When you generate outputs inside of a step, like Helm, you can say scrape these values out of Kubernetes and we'll make them outputs for the next step. All outputs are assumed to be sensitive, and there's no way to change that, and it makes debugging very difficult. So what we're going to do is add sensitive on step outputs. Like there's sensitive already at the bundle level output. This is just at step level. So it'll give us feature parity, but if people are relying on certain things, this may trip them up.
well, it's the whole step. It's not an individual output parameter.
Oh, let's see if I have an example of what this would look like. No. So when you define, you could be like, outputs, right? And then you would have something here like JSON path and whatever, something to get that. And the question is principal ID sensitive or not? And we want to be able to say sensitive.
Yeah, that's
true
perfect.
and default it to false. And defaulting it to false is what makes this a breaking change.
Okay.
And it just affects like what you see in the logs as you're trying to debug. So it's mostly just for people's experience making bundles and things like that to kind of help them out.
Yeah.
So that's what's breaking in here. Hopefully none of them are earth shattering, The big breaking changes have already all gone into V1.
Yep.
Did you already trip over some of those?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can't move off 38.7 at the moment.
Yeah.
So we need to invest some time to try to work out what happens. And we often get the opportunities with the MongoDB stuff not mounting properly as well, which I think we've all had over the last few weeks. So we're still learning.
Yeah,
I guess. But
we're using latest. It hasn't bitten us in the butt recently.
Let's not mention latest. It's ironic that we have policies that don't allow anything to run with the latest tag, except on the port stuff. We missed looking at that with the policy. It was like, oops. So that was a gap to fill quickly. But yeah, it's about 38.7 is as far as we can go at the moment. Anything beyond that just is not working for us. So.
Yeah, and to be clear, the 1.0 data persistence is not fixed in stone. Something could change later, and we're not providing like migrations or anything until our RC for V1. So like you shouldn't be using it right now other than
Staff of alpha. Got it.
Yeah, try it, right? But don't actually expect any installation data to be usable from version to version.
Right.
The storage, how we store things in the back end could definitely still change. Like especially when you consider things like secure data storage, like of those sensitive parameters, like that's going to hit people. So that's why we're saying don't use V1 for any data you need to actually rely on. Okay. This is really helpful. Thanks everyone. obviously I'm gonna be gone for a while, but if people want to work on things, Vaughn Dice, the other maintainer, will be around and able to review PRs or give feedback or anything like that. And then Ralph Squatchy, he's on Slack all the time, and you can reach out to him if you have like questions or things comes up. I'm gonna like literally cut my LAN. It will be unreachable.
Good for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you.
Is that everything people wanted to cover?
Yeah, I just wanted to hop on and introduce myself, I guess, since I might be helping push it through Iron Bank. I don't expect it to be a particularly difficult procedure. Like Don was mentioning, anything that's going to get flagged is going to be mix-ins, just because not all of those are going to be sourced directly from code that we control in these repos. The Docker files are the easy part. Pretty much everything in Iron Bank is done as a multi-stage Docker build. So there'll be this Docker file, and then there'll be another one built within the Iron Bank repo, platform repo, and it'll just pull digests from whatever versions of the Porter images and do a multi-stage build from there. They use Twistlock and Anchor for vulnerability scanning. And if it weren't distroless, they would use OpenSCAP. So we've pretty neatly sidestepped that one, thankfully. But yeah, I don't expect it to be super difficult, and gonna be looking forward to getting those in.
Oh yeah, no, Iron Bank would be great. We've got a number of people like pinning their hopes on that so that they don't have to try to get it approved themselves.
Yeah. And I did submit the PR for the operator operator Docker file as well.
Thank you. That's incredibly helpful. I gotta be honest, I looked at that Iron Bank stuff and I'm like, I would love to do this, and I didn't. I had no idea like where the bar was or what we needed to be doing. So your feedback has just been incredibly helpful.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm happy to help step through the full process if you guys need. So I guess with you being out, that would probably be with Ralph or somebody else.
Yeah. Ralph's, if you're not sure, chat with Ralph. Vaughn is just doing like PR reviews and things like that. But when we're talking about like larger designs and things,
cool.
He's not involved with any of the Iron Bank stuff. Not because we don't like him, but he doesn't want to be.
Fair enough. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, and I hope you enjoy your hiatus.
Thank you. All right. Thanks everyone for coming. This will be recorded and put up on YouTube. So since I certainly didn't take notes, if anyone forgets, it'll be up there. Okay.
All right. Thanks again, Carolyn. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great break.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.